This is the Bahco 3-piece ratchet spanner set, or wrench for the Americans. Okay, so there's 3 spanners in the set, each covering 4 different fixing sizes. So the smallest covers 8 to 11 millimeters. The middle size covers 12 to 15 millimeters, and the largest one covers 16 to 19 millimeters. They do make a couple of larger versions if you work with particularly large fixings, but again, for a home mechanic, this set has proven a great replacement for day-to-day spanners for most tasks. They're really nicely made tools with this light satin finish, a good weight and feel in the hand, very smooth, no rough edges, very well machined. I've really enjoyed using these tools, and as I say, I reach them quite often, and they're a godsend for undoing nuts or bolts in confined spaces, ultimately, where you can't get a socket in, but without a ratcheting action you're forced to make a hell of a lot of turns with a ring or an open-ended spanner. The ratchet itself operates with a really clean, positive click. I found these certainly strong enough to put a fair bit of welly into, but of course ratchets are not designed to be used with as much force as a breaker bar, for instance, or even with a conventional ring spanner, because you are dealing with a mechanism inside here. But even so, I've not had any concerns or worries about putting too much pressure on the ratchet in normal expected types of use. It's a 72 point ratchet, which means you get about 18-19 clicks per right angle turn. So let's just demonstrate that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. What that means in practice is that if the space you're working in basically allows you to do about this much movement, then you're not going to be able to get a ratcheting effect, but anything more, as soon as you can engage a click, you can use the ratcheting action to make progress with your fastener. The direction of the ratchet is selected by this little sort of lever here, which clicks with a nice easy positive action. Like most spanners nowadays, they're made of chrome vanadium. No problems experienced at all there. It's all as expected. As I say, they've really got a nice, smooth and pleasant finish to them. So they're really nice tools to use. You kind of feel like you're holding an item of quality. Of course, Bahco made its name in adjustable spanners, but I think adjustable spanners, sockets, these kinds of ratchet wrenches are where they seem to really excel as a brand. One downside of ratchets, obviously, versus conventional ring spanners is the head width and depth. Ultimately, there are wider walls on each head. There is greater depth to it, so there are instances where you will still need to reach for a conventional ring spanner or even open-ended spanner, because you just won't be able to get this in on there. Maybe it's a fast thing that's very close to the edge of something else, and you just can't quite fit in there. So the deepest end on the 18-19 millimeter wrench or spanner is about 22-23 millimeters deep. On the smallest one, which is the end, which would be the 8 and 10 millimeter end, we're talking about 14 millimeters deep. You can also see that there is pretty much a flat profile across the tool. Now, as anybody who's used ring spanners know, there are occasions where having that slight offset angle on the ring is particularly useful to get onto a tricky fastener. So absolutely, there are times when this just won't fit effectively and you will have to revert to your conventional ring spanner. Another nice feature of these double-ended spanners is that if you're using the larger side, the smaller ring on the other side actually stops the fastener being passed through. And where that's particularly handy is when you're in a very confined place. and you're having to sort of tease it onto the end there and you can still use it. Because what would happen with a conventional ring spanner, for instance, is if you were pushing it through, it could slide through the other side and then you're constantly having to reshuffle, and that can be quite irritating. So that's a really nice little feature. Set comes with this handy little case. Again, you know, this doesn't get anywhere near as much use as a socket set, but I mainly use it for those hard to access fasteners in the car. But it's a really handy size to grab and know that you've pretty much got all the sizes you're going to need covered in this handy little carry case. It's a classic sort of standard Kudura piece, quite tough and hard wearing with a bit of Velcro. I've seen a couple of people have a couple of stitching issues, but I've not had any problems at all. And it's a really handy little carry case basically, and certainly a lot easier to grab than my other big tool roll full of normal conventional spanners. So all in all, I'd really recommend this set. It's one I've had for a number of years. As I say, it doesn't get as much use as the socket set, but it's a super versatile little set, and it's super quick to grab and know that I'm going to cover most of bases from a spannering perspective. It's well made, the finish is nice, the ratchet action for me has proved super reliable. So a very easy to use tool. I paid about £35 for the set, but this was a few years ago, and I believe the price is nearer to £50 now. But again, I think for the versatility and quality of what you're getting, it's well worth that outlay. These are tools that ultimately should last you for life.